Good morning, David. Thank you. I'll just proceed with our usual format now, if I may. And we've got a lot of activity happening at the Baptist Race Club. It's been a big week again, and we've had the opportunity this morning to talk to our usual contributors this morning and last night, Wayne Gannon, bookmaker and committee man on the Baptist Race Club, and they've both drawn attention to some runners this afternoon that they thought might perform reasonably well. The boys' contribution last week wasn't so hot, but Wayne came up with at least one winner. Shane didn't have any strike rate last week, but they're back for more this morning. And Wayne started off his attention getters this morning with Brisbane Race 4, number 7, Male Escort. Race 4, number 7. It's all in Brisbane for Wayne. Brisbane Race 6 today is number 3, A Man to Match. Race 6, number 3, A Man to Match. He then went to race 9, number 10, Shogun's Son. Race 9, number 10. He did have a fancy in that race as well as Shogun's Son being his principal choice. He liked Court King in that same race. He asked that get a mention as well. In race 10, he liked number 2, Constant Flight. Race 10, number 2. So that was Wayne's contributions for the ones that he thought might perform reasonably well this afternoon. And talking to Shane Galinsky in the dead of night last night, we managed to get Shane to come up with some contribution. He spreads his around a little bit more. In Brisbane Race 8, he liked number 6, Guard of Honour. Race 8, number 6. He then went to Sydney for the remainder of his selections. Massive day in Sydney today, which we'll talk about in a minute, but in Sydney Race 8, Shane liked Yogi. Sydney Race 8, it's the massive meeting in Sydney today, of course, with the farewell of the Grand Lady Winks having her final start after 32 consecutive wins. But in Race 8, number 8, the Sydney Cup today, that's another factor in the Sydney meeting. The Sydney Cup Race 8, number 8, Yogi, was Shane's selection there last night, and he liked in race 9, number 16, Amphitrite, number 16 in race 9, and in the last race, race 10 in Sydney, Shane liked number 5, Sprite. So that was the contribution from our regular helpers for the meetings this afternoon. Big week of activity. Last week saw the Toowoomba race, the carnival meeting with the Toowoomba Cup and Weekwood races, and the Metropolitan Status meetings for Toowoomba last week. The Toowoomba Cup and the Weekwood Handicap, all historic events, and massive influx from outside on the Toowoomba meeting, and there was a great interest in that particular meeting. Our own runners from the desert, there were 25 runners in various places during the week, with races being sought. Races to suit the horses from the desert area included trainers travelling to the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast, Ballina, Ipswich and Gatton, and that the number of meetings attended. Last 5 of those 9 South East Queensland meetings were attended by Desert representatives last week, with 25 runners. Sadly, we're back into a phase where there were no winners. We only had 1 second, 3 thirds and 2 fourths in that activity during the week. Today, of course, and Sydney is the main focus of the day. There'll be 40,000 people there, the farewell Winks, in that meeting in Sydney today, the Sydney Cup meeting as well. And Winks having her finale, the little lady put a scare out on Thursday morning. She threw a tantrum which caused a lot of concern. She apparently the trainer took the earmuffs off Winks on Thursday morning after training, and she didn't like the activity and the noise of the 62 cameras and the video recorders and so on that were there for the morning to see her final day of track work, and she put on a real temperamental tantrum apparently, which is of some concern. We hope she's not becoming a cranky old lady in her finale, but the 62 cameras that were there causing all the noise that she apparently reacted to gives an indication of the worldwide interest in the activity on the world of the world's best current racehorse at that event on third track work on Thursday morning. So she races in race 7 in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes today, of course, at 3:05. The Metropolitan Toowoomba Weekwood meeting didn't see any results for Bay Desert trained horses, but there was great interest in the local racing up there in Toowoomba, with my local businessman Mike Crooks having a number of runners, and with a limited amount of success too. Michael picked up a 4th prize money check with Defence Missile. He went 3rd in the Toowoomba Cup with Nishani Vaida, and he ran 3rd also in the Weekwood Handicap. Very historic races, those two, the Toowoomba Cup and Weekwood Handicap. And Michael ran 3rd in the Weekwood with Nishani Hustler. So a great business interest there, and recognition of the input that Mike Crooks puts into the thoroughbred breeding and racing industry. Provincial meetings last week at the Gold Coast included a result with Sportini for Ben Robinson, having its first start for the stable. Ran 3rd at the Gold Coast. At the Sunshine Coast on Sunday, Elite Label ran 3rd for Bo Gorman, and in Ballina on Monday we had 2 fourths down there, minor prize money checks with Dances with Time for Ross Howard, and also another 4th there for the Ponster for Kelvin Hickmont. So the batters of trainers spreading themselves around over so many of these meetings in southeast Queensland and Northern Rivers. At Ipswich on Wednesday, our Rocky ran a very creditable, only a length and a half from the winner, but only managed to get a 5th there. So many of our results are so close without winning prize money. We had the meeting at Gatton on Thursday, where Greg Cornish finished up 2nd with Now Is Everything, and Spike Deacon, Ken Deacon, had a 3rd at Gatton with Argo's Revenge. We usually have a star of the week, but in spite of the great training efforts and the consistent participation by the desert trainers, there were no performances that warranted a mention of star for the week. The industry contribution by local trainers to the scenic rim economy is quite enormous. Consider the travelling they do, the communications they have to have, the products they use, and the properties they operate, and the employment they provide. Still, along with the additional tremendous spread of thoroughbred breeding establishments, is certainly the biggest local active industry in the scenic rim. Sales activity goes on with the approaching Easter period. There's always the yearling sales going on at the moment. The Sydney Easter yearling sales are a little bit earlier this year, but the Bay Desert studs have contributed to the activity in those sales, and Bay Desert breeders had various progeny at those sales, and already at the major sales down south, we've had representatives or progeny being sold there by local studs, KBL thoroughbreds, and also the Glen Logan Park stud. So it's great to see the scenic rim contribution to that activity in the thoroughbred industry down south at the present time, with further sales to come in Queensland. Today we've got runners in various places, including Eagle Farm, the major metropolitan meeting in Queensland at Eagle Farm. Great to see them racing at Eagle Farm again. The metropolitan meeting there, we see in race 7, number 3, Chewin' with Dylan, trained by Ben Aarons, and in the 10th race, last race of the day, unfortunately, Laurie Richardson's had bad luck again with this balloting arrangement. His all one class was scheduled to run in that race, but only drew 21, making it the 5th emergency, and very unlikely, in fact, or certainly not going to get a run on that basis in Brisbane today. I think Laurie's got that horse nominated for the Sunshine Coast tomorrow as well. We'll come to that in a minute. Saturday today at the Gold Coast, a big provincial meeting at the coast, and a contingent travelling to the coast from the desert includes Tracy Green taking 10 large down for the second race, number 5, and Ben Robinson in the same race, number 7, Holers Bowlers. Good representation there from both those trainers. Those horses are both dual acceptances for Kilcoy and Lismore, so we can't be certain which event they're going to participate in. In the fourth race at the Gold Coast, Diane Murphy, a regular patron of the Gold Coast meeting, is taking Glen Ord to race for number 7, Glen Ord for Diane Murphy, and Ben Aarons has also got in race 5, number 5, Miss Amanda. Race 5, number 5, Miss Amanda for Ben Aarons, and Ben also has in race a representative in race number 7, number 6, Only Ever Annie. The Kilcoy meeting today is usually a very high patronage of the Kilcoy meetings by the Bay Desert trainers, but surprisingly there was only one acceptance for Kilcoy at that meeting today from Bay Desert, and that horse, I understand, has been scratched. Tracy Green had accepted at Kilcoy, but won't be going, I don't think, with 10 large. It's a very unusual situation to have so few, or in fact in this case no participants in that Kilcoy meeting. The Kilcoy track incidentally has been redeveloped and refurbished, and a lot of money being spent up there to improve the facilities at Kilcoy. Still today, with further runners, there's a Lismore meeting in the Northern Rivers. These meetings in the Northern Rivers indicate the benefit of the Scenic Rim training base, access to both Queensland and New South Wales Northern Rivers racing, and a lot depends on the weather conditions, the tracks. Some horses are very suited to some of these tracks, and there are races to suit in many cases for some of the trainers to take their horses from the Bay Desert training facility. In the racing in the Northern Rivers today, we see the first representative, Greg Cornish, has got Bar, race 1, number 6 today at that meeting at Lismore, and Ben Robinson got Holers Bowlers in race 3, as has Greg Cornish with Glass and a Heart in race 3, and Spartini. These races will be visible in Sky Racing, one of the Sky Racing channels, the Lismore meeting. That last one I mentioned in race 3 was number 10 Sportini for Ben Robinson. In the fourth race, the Dashing Ocean for Ben Robinson. Kelvin Hickmont, a regular patron of the Northern Rivers racing, is taking Lady Mossman to the fourth race, number 7. And Ben Robinson again in the fifth race has Alfie Junior, and Kelvin Hickmont has the Ponster in the fifth race at Lismore today. And in the sixth race we've got Bo Gorman with number 1 Backchat, and Ray Litton is taking number 2 Send Us a Sign, competing against each other in that race at the last race at Lismore today. Interesting events, a big event out at Chinchilla today. A lot of race clubs are having celebratory meetings for this last event of the champion Winks, and Chinchilla's no exception, having a big event out there today. And Paul Dolan, her regular race caller at Bay Desert over decades, has turned up. He's called over 100 tracks. As Paul, he's retiring now, and has retired, but one track he has never called at or broadcast the races from is at Chinchilla. So he's patronising that Chinchilla meeting today. It's all part of his retirement plan, a bit like John Farnham, I guess. He might write a book about those 100 race tracks that he's called at, might call when he's finished his activity. But certainly that Chinchilla event will be a big event today in country racing in Queensland. We've got the night meeting at Toowoomba. Tonight we've got one representative going up there for Tracy Green in the sixth race. She has number 2 Crude Oil going around in Toowoomba tonight. Tomorrow it continues at the Sunshine Coast. Sunday at the Sunshine Coast in the first race, Yankee Sang is representing Glenn Baker, Jan Pritchard's taking Man Call to the second race at the Sunshine Coast. Had a fair start at the Gold Coast recently, that horse, with a very creditable third. So that's Man Call for Jan Pritchard in the second race at the Sunshine Coast tomorrow. Matthew John Dunn is taking Corsini to the coast for the sixth race, number 8, and Diane Murphy, a regular patron of the Sunshine Coast, is taking Mashani Phoenix for race 8, number 6 at the Sunshine Coast tomorrow. And Laurie Richardson, who unfortunately didn't get that run, or won't get that run in Brisbane today, is also at the Sunshine Coast tomorrow, taking that horse there for race 9, number 16, all one class, to be ridden by local lady jockey Brooke Ainsworth. So great days of interest in those racing events at the Sunshine Coast tomorrow. Upcoming meetings during the week see meetings at Grafton on Monday, Ipswich on Wednesday, and there'll be a number of trainers represented at those meetings. Greg Cornish, Darlene Duray, Kelvin Hickmont, Bo Gorman and Ben Aarons have all nominated for those races, and quite a number of them will obviously accept. So don't forget there's a lot of information regarding the activity of the Batters at Race Club and the industry generally on the Facebook site for this program, which of course is www.facebook.com/racing radio show. I just mentioned that again. You can also access a further replay of this broadcast, but www.facebook.com/racing radio show. We'll get a wealth of information there about the activities of the Scenic Rim thoroughbred breeding and racing industry, and don't forget also the Bay Desert Race Club website, which will give you a good update on upcoming events at the Bay Desert Aquas Track. And with Easter approaching, we've got a lot of racing activity. Meetings are coming up now, special days for the diary, for the meetings at the Bay Desert Track. Anzac Day, of course, is the biggest meeting of the year, or very close to the biggest meeting of the year for the Bay Desert Race Club, on Thursday the 25th of April. That's a great opportunity for extended stay visitors at the Bay Desert to have a day at the Scenic Rim and an afternoon at the races on Anzac Day. Hibernian meeting, the Hibernian Charity Race Club has its one meeting of the year at the Aquas Track at Bay Desert on Saturday the 18th of May. That club has raised an enormous amount of funding for charity over the course of years. Then in June, on Saturday the 22nd of June, again very major meeting, the Bay Desert Cup meeting on that day. So those are special days for the diary. Those Bay Desert meetings, of course, now are being promoted and managed by the Gold Coast Turf Club. They're going to do some big promotions for those upcoming Anzac Day and Bay Desert Cup meetings. So the Gold Coast Turf Club putting a lot of effort into the promotion and running of the Bay Desert Race Club meetings. So we had the barrier trial jump outs last Tuesday at the track, a great benefit for the local trainers there, and I understand the next jump outs will be on the first Tuesday henceforth. The first Tuesday of each month we'll see the regular jump out barrier trials go as a great benefit for the local trainers. So with that, I think we've covered most of the activity that we wanted to talk about this morning. It should be a great day of racing today, a great afternoon lounge room day at the races. If you can't get to Eagle Farm today or Gold Coast, there'll be tremendous TV coverage of those meetings and the meetings in Sydney and down south, and also the Eagle Farm track, which is great to have operating again. So with that, we'll sign off for the morning by thanking the listeners for having us at third place. Look forward to talking to you all again next Saturday morning at the same time, and hopefully with some good results coming out of those runners we've talked about performing during this weekend and the coming week.